Yeah, we're live somewhere.
I see a thing that says live.
Perfect, perfect. Well, this is Fun with Technology. Welcome to Referrals While You Sleep show with the one and only Zach Hammer of, he's my AI mentor, really, real estate growth hackers, lots of stuff.
Indeed.
And it's cool that we get paid. This is our business to talk about the cool things that we're interested in.
That's right.
And happy Thanksgiving, post Thanksgiving. I think we texted around there. And today I thought we'd talk about, man, everywhere I've been seeing this phrase specific knowledge, which, Naval Ravikant, I think he's one of the smartest people I've ever heard from.
Right.
And someone just, I don't know, there's the Almanac of Naval. Have you heard of this book?
I have not.
Someone took a lot of his uh, podcast and they put it into a book. And so you can buy it or you can read it online.
That's a
They
good
also
idea.
did one for biology. And, one of the interesting things is referrals while you sleep. I don't know if I've told you this. It was actually inspired by Naval's epic 3.5 hour podcast on how to get rich without getting lucky.
Hmm.
And, he actually says early on, he's like, I'd really name it how to like build real wealth. But that's not as catchy as how to get rich without getting lucky.
Right. Right.
And there was just so much like really good stuff in that.
Right.
One was, you've got builders and you've got sellers, and if you can do both, you can really write your own ticket. And I
Right.
was like, oh wait, hey, I'm a programmer,
Right.
and I kind of know how to sell. Like, can I build something that gives a lot of value to the world? And
Right.
he talks about leverage, and it got me thinking of like, hey, can I build something that would kind of almost like, what if I had robots that door knocked on all the people that I know,
Right.
in real estate, and just said, hey, Charlie sent me here to see how you're doing, say hi, give you some cookies,
Right.
and like like what would happen if I had like a robot army that could do that every day? Like,
Right.
of course, like I'm top of mind. They would appreciate the reciprocation, and of course that didn't exist. But really, referrals while you sleep, the idea of we take these types of conversations and the people that know me get to watch them. And, the
Right.
people that know me, they really like me. They like hearing me talk. Um, I talk about things that probably other people don't talk about.
Right.
I've got enough friends now. They expect me whenever age comes up, I'm going to live to be 256. It may not be in this body, and my consciousness might be in a robot body, but
Right.
lots of fun conversations.
Right. Right.
And one of the things was specific knowledge.
Right.
And you and I, we've got something in common that we love listening to Akira the Don.
Right.
And Akira the Don, that he's built this really awesome niche business for himself where he's a DJ that
Right.
loves listening to philosophy and uh, people like Naval and Jocko, and he takes it and
Right.
puts their speeches into music. And me and you, we listen to it pretty often.
Yeah, I say Akira the Don. It hits like a podcast, but it goes down like music.
I like that. It's
Yep.
true. It's true. Yeah, I've got kind of my best year ever. I've got a list of list of them that I listen to that really kind of brainwashes me, kind of cleanses my mind, my
Right.
palate.
Right.
Like I've got some Gary V in there,
Yep.
um, and now like when people ask how life is, I'm like, I'm living my best life.
Right.
It's a great day to feel good, and that's
Right.
from this. And where that comes in specific knowledge is Akira the Don knew how to DJ. He had
Right.
this ability, or he had this hunger, really, this thirst to listen to podcasts, listen to thought leaders, always grow.
Right.
And he smashed those two things together. And he's there's other people that do it now, but he's number one.
Yeah. I haven't seen anybody else that does it. And I'll have to see if I like anybody else's stuff because he's literally the only one that I had seen doing it. I was like, wow, like this is just it hits such an interesting place because it's not to get too far into the Akira the Don weeds, but uh it's something that I could listen to while I'm working. And I have found I can't listen. I can't listen to most, like, I can't listen to an audiobook. I can't listen to even most music I can't listen to while I'm trying to do something else. But I'm often able to listen to Akira the Don stuff. And I don't know why. I don't know why that's different. Otherwise, if it wasn't for that, I typically listen to like instrumental stuff. Not usually like my go-to has historically been like EDM techno beats kind of stuff, something that has a decent amount of energy, but
Right.
driving bass line anyway. But I seem to be able to listen to Akira the Don stuff, and so I'm like, ooh, I get the focus benefits that music seems to unlock for me, but I also get like it's sort of imbuing this knowledge and thought process into me, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of goes into Naval. One of the other things he says is the best way to win in business is you find stuff that seems like play to you,
Right.
but seems like work to others.
Right.
Like this conversation that me and you're having, some people like they just couldn't do it.
Right.
Um, there's I'm sure DJs that couldn't listen to the hours of talks that Akira the Don does.
Right.
But I mean, there's a chance that he was listening to it in the background while he was working on stuff. Who
Right.
knows?
Well, and
And
not only that, like what's interesting is you and I know you and I could sit down and in the midst of our lives, we listen to things like podcasts. We do a decent amount of reading. Like we do that sort of thing. I am fairly certain that neither you or I has the patience to do that in a way where we're sampling clips and then setting them to beats, right? Like that
right,
part, because you and I are both familiar with like the amount of time and work and effort it goes into doing like extensive editing on anything. Uh,
ugh,
trying to go through that much audio to find the right samples and all of that, like that's easily hours and hours of work just to create a 3-minute song just to find the things that you want to sample. So yeah, anyway.
right, yeah, yeah. It's probably play to him, work to us,
Right.
and to me, it's I've started saying this is playfully profitable, playfully profitable.
Right.
That's really what that ends up. And the key, like you can't just play,
Right.
um or at least I can't. I've got kids also. I want to be a mentor to my kids. Like
Right.
I want to show them how to be playfully profitable. I want to
Right.
show
Right.
them how to, like Mac, my oldest right now, he's into drawing anime,
Yeah.
and like he's on my Canva account. I mean, I think literally right now, and he's making these drawings, and he had these three, and he's getting better. And like, I
Nice.
want him to dive into his obsession.
After
That's
after this, after we're done recording this, I have some potential recommendations for you in terms of tools and software and stuff for that, because I on the side, I wanted to be a comic book artist when I was a kid, so I actually have a bit of familiarity with some of those things still.
oh wow, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Because like I mean, one of my goals is I want my kids. I don't know if I've shared this. I've shared it with you, but my goal is that my network becomes my kids' network as they grow up.
Right.
So they have connections like this. I mean, how
Right.
cool is that? He's into anime. You've got really extensive specific knowledge. Like
Right.
you've lived it. You probably have some things that someone else just can't teach, and
Right.
you're going to share that with.
Right.
And another thing that Naval says is follow your own obsession.
Right.
And specific knowledge, what is it? It is it's knowledge that can't be trained in a course.
Right.
It's
I
knowledge that what?
I'd put a caveat on that.
Yeah,
I think I think there's like in terms of just understanding this, and I don't know if this is useful to have this specificity here, but I think any of this stuff could be taught in a course. Like it can be. It's not typically profitable. It's not typically like the time that it would take to fully learn and understand something the way that you need to have that level of depth. That like practically it's not teachable in a course, right? Everything does ultimately boil down to learnable skills that somebody could replicate with again, there is like an internal motivation component in there. But that to me is more the key, is that the underlying thing that people miss is, well, all the information could be present in the course, but if you don't have that intrinsic motivation to like really make it your obsession, then it doesn't matter if all the answers are there. You still won't take them in and won't learn them, right? And so that's where
Yeah.
that sort of element comes from. But it's not like the information itself is secret, and it like it may all be out there and all freely available. The difference maker is most often that that innate drive to want to develop that through that obsession, through that, it's like I can't help but do this. I can't help but dive deeper into this because I find it so fascinating, because I just naturally am inclined to do it. But anyway,
Yes. I'd say yes, and some of it really can't be taught in a course
right,
because it's based on like I mean, it's based on who you are. Like it's your adaptive lived experiences. Like you would almost have to go through my life,
right,
and you will. I mean, will have to have like gone through all of my different experiences because there's like like a diamond has all of these facets. Like
right,
I was trying to take all the facets of referrals while you sleep, and like the books and my influences. And it's 20 years worth of being an entrepreneur. And then before that, it was 20 years of, I was adopted. Therefore, I was
right,
afraid of abandonment. So I had to build my
right,
entrepreneurial business on never getting objections, because if I got
right,
objections, um, I, I thought I was going to die, and it paralyzed me.
right.
So,
Which
like,
by the way, going back is earlier, something that you said, I know how to sell a little bit. I'd almost say, humbly and respectfully, uh, I'd almost say that's not the case, and not in any dig sort of way, but more because the skill that you really have is how to make yourself so irresistible that people want to buy from you, right? It's different. Like some people are like, I know how to approach something to get somebody to buy. You're like, I just know how to exist and create the systems in a way that like people naturally feel like, oh, I want to work with Charlie. anyway,
yeah, I see that. Yeah, that there's truth in that. And because
right,
and part of it goes back to that, adoption, like, and then the people that raised me, they died when I was early,
mhm,
when I was 13 and 20. So I didn't have
right,
family. And so I had to learn how to find other great families and
right,
be of value to them, be likable, because there's a blood bond that's different than a neighbor bond, you
right,
know. And
right,
I was kind of like a ship floating on the ocean, and I didn't want to be, I wanted this safe
right,
harbor. And so I
right,
learned how to find good people that were fun to be around, that like could love a neighbor
right,
close to their family, and like be helpful, be valuable, be nice, be funny. Um,
right,
and like that was my safe harbor.
right,
And so like, and that's part of what I've got, and then I've got my programming knowledge. And both my parents were entrepreneurs. And um, like what I've got, it's really like to be able to have the whole thing. Like it's very specific knowledge. Like I can
right,
teach it, I can share it. I can give you
right,
shortcuts so you don't have to go through my 42 years. of
Right.
that. Like I have learned, like I've got some pretty cool skills that,
Right.
I've developed because I had to. And like I can, like what I share is really, really cool.
Right.
Um, that I don't know many other people that can actually do or like have my view of it. Whether it's
Right.
living to be 256, and so I've got all the time in the world, so I can be present with my family, I can take care of my health, I can
Right.
slowly build a business. Um, to programming and the idea of robots and hey, we want you to be recorded right now because like we're going to be able to create you know AI bots of you in the future, like
Right.
all of that. Like it's really specific knowledge. Like I'm in a category of one,
Right. Right.
and that creates a lot of peace. You
Mm.
know,
I think what's interesting to me is, let me see if I can even put this into words. So it's there's 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 kind of two sides to this. Uh there's the specific knowledge and the idea of like I have this unique skill set that unlocks opportunities for me, right? But there's also this understanding that I feel like is worthwhile for people to have of, there is no way to be successful in these sorts of things without your own specific knowledge. And you will never be able to just operate like someone else. Like that's just not a thing. And so I feel like where a lot of people find frustration is they find frustration in trying to live out their life on somebody else's specific knowledge, instead of learning like this interesting thing that we do where I learn things from you that that help me, that change the way that I see the world, and hopefully give me more of an accurate picture of how to move forward, how to leverage my skills and all that. But like that being said, my sum total experience will never be yours, right? And you
right,
and yours will never be mine, right? And knowing that, like, that lets you know, like, what am I actually doing here, right? If I'm going through a course, I'm not going through a course in order to do the thing exactly the way that that person did, because that's not likely going to be a realistic expectation. I'm gonna go through this course to see what, based on my perspective and whatnot, what it unlocks for me, so that I go about and adapt what I'm doing, right? So I go about and I learn the keys and the aspects and the nuggets that I can apply to my situation, but also knowing my way is probably going to be a little bit different than what they did, right? At least
right,
partially in some way. Um. Anyway, and I think that helps to get rid of some of the anxiety of it, where I feel like this person has it figured out, and if I could just do what they were doing, I'd have what they have. And it's like, well, yeah, technically, but you'd also have to be them and have to have lived their life, and you're not going to do that. So
right.
so you might as well, become resigned to the reality of, you have your life and your specific knowledge and your unique point of view, and leverage that on your path forward, as how you're going to carve things out, rather than thinking the answer is somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. And some people might be wondering, like, all right, like, what is my specific knowledge? Because really, my goal with referrals while you sleep, like that, to me, this is the key. Like,
Right.
how do we highlight your specific knowledge to your to the people you meet, you know, to your warm audience?
Right.
If you run cold traffic, how do you indoctrinate the people into like your unique specific knowledge? Because that, if that's highlighted, you know, people are either going to turn you up to 11 because they love your, as Jamie Smart says, everyone's got like they've got their beacon. Like you
Right.
want people to either you want people to see your unique beacon and be drawn to it or run away. Um, and what's
Right.
cool about that is then you don't have to waste a lot of time on sales calls. you
Right.
know, um, you know, my goal is that people, I don't talk to people until they know who I am, what I do, and they're 99% sure they want to hire me before we even talk, you
Right.
know, and they're going to do that because they may want what I do, but really, like, they're going to stay because of who I am. Like, they
Right.
like me for me.
Right.
Um,
I
and
actually I have a framework of how I've thought through this. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I feel like it applies to this. Uh there so I in doing the work of thinking through personal branding, which is in some ways a little bit of an aspect of what you're talking about here. Um I needed a way to think through some of these questions for myself. And so I started interviewing people to see how they answered questions about me. And then based on the answers, I sort of started bucketing them into these different zones of like, well, what is this person saying, and where does it sort of relate together and relate to other things? Anyway, and so I came up with three different like core areas where kind of my unique DNA seems to show up and be present. And the first one is what I would call like what I do, and what I do could also be described as like my talent. Scott Adams talks about a talent stack. That's very related to this concept
right,
of specific knowledge. But talents, I would very specifically talk about like what are the things that I do that create meaningful outcomes for people, right? Where it's like the
yeah,
the processes or the things that I help somebody accomplish, right? So in whatever ways, where somebody, there's something that I could help somebody with. What are those things that I do? And like, what are those core areas where I do that? Right. So that's one of them. The other one, though, and I think this is part of what really speaks to what you're saying, especially in the this can't be taught, is the way that I do it, right? Like the unique way of like how I see the world and how I bring those things about. Things like the way that I think about integrity, the way that like for me personally, this is a real one. The way that empathy comes into play with how I approach things and how I think about things, and how it helps me to help bring ideas out of other people and help convey ideas to my intended audience. So like but that's a unique way that I do it. It's not a thing that I'm doing. It's a thing that's like part of the way that I do it. And there's more. There's lots of them in that bucket. But then the last one is just what I call like my unique flavor, right? And that is like, what are the things that maybe seemingly don't actually matter a lick for, like, if I'm helping real estate agents with their marketing, my love of like geek culture and things like that, like they don't make a lick of difference on the specifics of helping somebody with their marketing, but it is part of what potentially connects me to another person, right? Or it's part of what
right,
like creates a space for metaphors and creates a space for the way that I relate to the world, because just those things that are present in my mind. And so we all tend to have things like that. Like similarly for you, your involvement with jujitsu may not directly impact how effective referrals while you sleep is as a marketing system, right? As a way to get people in front of the people that already know them. But it is part of what makes you interesting as a person, right? And so like there's that interesting level that comes into play. But anyway, so when I'm thinking about specific knowledge, it's like all of those things sort of come together. I think the more obvious ones are the first two, the talents, and then the way that you do it. Like I think if you look through what you do, you could probably come up with those things. And then the one that it still matters, but maybe is it as obvious as part of the mix, is kind of that unique flavor of just what are some of the things about you that are unique and different and whatnot. But yeah.
yeah. I like those. I think that makes a lot of sense. And um, one of my ways that I've uh looked at that is I've got my list I got from Perry Marshall, the author of 80/20 Sales and Marketing, the pink Kool-Aid list,
Right.
which is like, what what is your unique flavor? Like, what are all the magazines that you looked at as a kid? What were all the hobbies you've ever had? What are all the jobs you've ever had? Like, what
Right.
are um, there's a list of things. If anyone wants, reach out to me. I've got it saved. I walk our referrals while you sleep clients through it,
Right.
to think, to find that. Of course, I've got what similar to you. You ask your top people what they do. ask, what's your favorite email in the world? Where I ask people, hey, what do you think my strengths are?
Right.
And it creates those buckets. And so that's kind of how you playfully do it.
Right.
Um, and then it's when they show up, bill them. I think one of the
Right.
cool things about real estate is it's usually pretty straightforward to bill them. You got a
Right.
buyer agreement, listing agreement, same thing with lenders. You get paid when it closes. Um, and I think one of the really cool things about this specific knowledge is in real estate, there's so many different ways you can go to it. Like one of mine, when I looked at all this, I was like, oh, I've got a really good strategy to help someone locally relocate,
Right.
move from their current home to a new home peacefully and profitably.
Right.
And, so I worked on kind of really micro branding that. And, I make really kind of it's close to 300% more on that client than someone that's just looking to buy or sell because you got
Right.
a higher price and a lower price. And then, you got to bump up there. It's usually
Right.
simpler. No one can really compare me apples to oranges, like the wholesalers or iBuyers or any of those people. They don't do any of that.
Right.
Um, and like I'm really in a category of one there.
Right.
And Uh, it it's really nice to be in a category of one. I mean, at the
Right.
end of the day, every entrepreneur really wants a monopoly,
Right. Right.
you know. And the truth is, because like if you listen to your specific knowledge, if you find that what's the term you said use your spark of life,
Spark of humanity.
spark of humanity. Like when you stop trying to follow everyone else and you kind of highlight that, find that.
Right.
Um, like you really are a category of one.
Right.
What I found, and this is my personal journey, is by default, I don't want to share that with the world because it's kind of raw.
Right.
Uh, it also sometimes doesn't seem special to me.
Mm.
It's like what I do naturally.
Right.
Sometimes I don't even have words for it, unless I'm
Right.
having a conversation. Like I've never heard anyone say respectfully, Charlie, you're not good at sales. What you're really good at is showing up and people want to be around you and give you money.
Right.
Um, like no one's ever said that, but it really rings true, and
Right.
it fleshed out, oh, that makes sense because the way I raised and,
Right.
looking for that safe harbor, it's Uh, and so, what we do in referrals when you sleep is, you know, we help highlight that spark of humanity, that specific knowledge, uh, help knock out all that other just busy work, so that you
Right.
can have more space to develop it. Um, and without getting too nerdy, like that's a compound interest game. The more
Right.
that I work in my specific knowledge, the more I get known for it, the better I get at, the more valuable it becomes. It's really, it's a peaceful and profitable practice the more that we can do that. And,
Right.
that's a lot of our best clients are really great at what they do and sometimes a little bashful about sharing it with people.
Mm.
And
Right.
that's me. That's me. Like I literally built this company so that the company could market me to my people and I didn't have to. I can show up and have a conversation and the right people are drawn to me. Because again, it
Right.
goes back to that whole rejection objection thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah, I mean, part of what it makes me think of it. I'll share the link. I don't know if you would have seen this or not, but Andrew Bustamante, which people may or may not be familiar, he started to kind of come on the scene. He's a former member of the CIA that started a business that's called the Everyday Spy or Everyday Spy.
Are they ever former?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But but what one of the things that he put into words something that I thought was really interesting. It was a useful framework to think about it, which was the difference between influence and persuasion. And so influence is the idea. Well, here, let me start with persuasion, because persuasion is what we're more used to, I think, which is the idea that I take specific actions to try and get you to do something differently, right? And typically, I'd say that's often what we think of as sales, right? Where we think
Right.
of like, I'm going to say the right things, or I'm going to build out the right system, or I'm going to have the right hooks and close downs and all of these things in order to ultimately get you to make a buying decision, right? And that would, like, those skills are persuasion. But he talks about influence being something different, and influence is not something that you do, but rather it's like a state that you build, where regardless of whether you're around, you are influencing people's behavior. And he talks about the difference of how you build influence versus how you persuade. And really what's interesting to me is influence is neither good nor bad. Like you could build influence with somebody in the sense of they hate being around you, and so your influence is that they never are around you anymore, because you've they've learned a behavior about you, so they're not around. Or the opposite, right? They learned that they always enjoy being around you, so your influence is that when they see your name come up, they want to be around you, right? Anyway, what I love about referrals while you sleep is that referrals while you sleep, like, if you had to choose between having influence or persuasion, if I have influence in the right direction, I'd take that every day over persuasion, because influence is something that continues to exist after you've built it. Like, it continues to be true, and it continues to work for you and on your behavior. And so what's powerful is that you've set up referrals while you sleep because of this special knowledge to be able to build influence for people, right? Where part of what builds influence is that continual exposure, right? Where people are continually exposed to something, so that you create some
Right.
consistency and expectation. And yeah, I forget where exactly that was fitting in with everything, but in terms
I
of the
love that.
overall, yeah, in terms of the overall idea, I love that, and I love how it fits with what you're up to, uh, because it's like it's this thing where it takes time to build it, but once you've built it, it just kind of keeps working for you. And yeah, anyway, that's powerful.
Yeah. And I think that's the magic, especially in real estate lending, where they're like, we know that on average, everyone's going to move in 7 years. We just don't know which year.
Right,
And so everyone in your phone,
right,
like, I mean, you got 1,000 people. That's basically 15% every year.
right,
And what's cool about like, you hit it. Like, if it was persuasion, when they're ready, you got to do the right dance. You got
right,
to have the right listing presentation.
right,
With influence, you, it builds. Like, I'm
right,
so grateful for the 15% that are going to move 6 years from now, because I'm going to have
right,
even more influence, because they're going to see more testimonials. They're going to see my unique spark of humanity. They're going to hear me talk about what I do uniquely. And
right,
they're either going to say, I want what you do, or I'm going to go somewhere else. And,
right,
it creates the compliant clients,
right,
is what it does through that. I love that. I agree. Like, with influence, I don't have to jump, I don't have to do a silly dance to create persuasion. I don't have to have the Benjamin Franklin close. People,
right,
they say, I need help and I want you to do it.
right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, I mean, like, what's interesting is that we all have influence, right? Because humans are social creatures, and so it's literally it's part of how people are punished, right? Like you're set in time out, sit by yourself as a kid. You grow older, and you end up in jail or prison. You're set aside from people. You're put into solitary confinement as a way to punish you, right? And so that's the extreme on the problem end, right? But that naturally means that traditionally functioning humans, we're connected to other people, which means anybody that you're continually around, you have some level of influence with, right? They've either learned that they don't bring up certain topics around you, or that they always want your opinion on this thing or whatever, right? But you have some sort of influence somewhere. So what's powerful about this is that you figured out a way in order to maximize the ability to build influence even when you're not around, because you're going after the right people who are most likely to actually have this influence happen, because they already at least have like some familiarity with you. But two, you you have, we're at an interesting time in technology and your own skill set to be able to make the process of having that happen consistently cost effective, consistent, recurring. People are continually on these devices, so there's a means and opportunity to kind of continually be in front of somebody, but that I don't personally have to literally be sitting in front of the person every time that I'm doing that. Like that's where the power comes in. And the math just ends up working out because of what you said, right? Especially in real estate. If you're every 7 years or so on average, so really it's just a number game of how many people do you know, right?
Right.
And for most, what I've seen for most people in real estate, it's not that hard to get that number of people that you know high enough that it's a really solid income, as long as you stay in front of them.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. My friend Jamie, he said, you've got that people person power. And I've never heard that phrase before, but most real estate people do. You meet people,
Right.
and what's cool about that 15% number, that's not even including the referrals you get.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I've got some clients right now. They just moved to Nashville. I say they're clients, they're friends, and they're referring their parents
Right.
that are moving here. You
Right.
know, that wasn't even in my list, but I was
Right.
top of mind because they're on their phone 4.5 hours a day and they see me all the time.
Right.
And it's not. I mean, otherwise, I probably see them maybe once a month,
Right.
maybe. Like I don't see them a whole lot. But when
Right.
their parents were moving, like I was the first thought, you know.
Right. Yeah. I love it.
So, yeah, and all that ties into specific knowledge. That's because going back, now that you've got that influence, when you come to mind, you're not just another realtor, but it's like who you are
Right.
specifically. Warren Buffett says he wants to invest in businesses that have a moat around them.
Right.
And there's literally no other real estate agent that can do what I do the way that I do it. That's my specific knowledge. And so that's what we're highlighting. I'm not calling them saying, do you know anyone that wants to buy, sell, or invest? They're seeing these in-depth conversations
Right.
where we're talking about, Mac drawing, we'll talk about me going, we're going to Puerto Rico again soon,
Right.
and how I use technology and how I go, like they see it all.
Right.
And basically, my moat is my monopoly. I'm the only me, and the right ones come to me.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll see how this live stream went. And
Indeed.
I'm Charlie Madison with Referrals Way Sleep. This
I'm
is
Zach
the
Hammer.
wonderful Zach Hammer, and see y'all soon. Bye.